The cheapest watch here is a G-Shock, and it may end up being the one you wear more than anything else you own. Almost nobody plans for that. They figure it out by accident, years too late. By 30, your wrist needs 5 jobs covered, not 50 watches, 5. The rough days, the working days, the fun days, the formal days, and the day you finally arrive. That last one, you do not buy with money. Number 1 is the one you cannot kill. Number 1. The watch you cannot kill. Start here, and start cheap. Because in your 20s, you are hard on everything you own. You wear one watch to the gym, on a red-eye, under the hood of a car, and out in the yard, and half the time you forget you have it on. A square G-Shock does not care. You can drop it on concrete, run it under a tap, leave it baking in a hot car, and it shrugs all of it off for a fraction of what the rest of this list costs. There is nothing to protect, so you never think about protecting it. And that is the entire point at this age. You are not broke because you are lazy. You are broke because you are 24 and rent exists. So the smart first move is not a fragile thing you flinch over every time your wrist taps a doorframe. It is the one watch in your life that owes you nothing and asks for nothing back. Here is the part nobody warns you about. Years from now, with nicer watches sitting in a drawer, you will still reach for the G-Shock on the days that actually matter. Moving apartments, long flights, the weekend you are doing real work with your hands. The expensive pieces stay home, and the cheap one shows up. People assume that is a step down, like you failed to graduate to something better. It is the opposite. You bought a tool that does its job so completely that 30 years of watchmaking cannot talk you out of it. A square G-Shock carries hardware most luxury watches do not bother with. 200 meters of water resistance, shock resistance engineered into the case back in the 80s when Casio set out to build a watch you genuinely could not break. Solar power on a lot of them, so you never touch a battery. A digital display you can read at a dead sprint in the dark. It is not trying to be jewelry, and that honesty is exactly why it lasts. But a watch you forget you are wearing cannot do everything. There is a version of your life where you walk into a room and the watch is supposed to say something on your behalf. That calls for something completely different, and it happens to be the one watch most guys skip. Number 2, the one watch that does almost everything. If you only ever own one watch, own this one. It is a clean automatic on a versatile case. Picture an integrated bracelet piece like a Tissot PRX, or a sharp field watch from Hamilton, or a Seiko or an Orient that punches 3 tiers above what it costs. Slim enough to slide under a cuff, tough enough to wear all week, plain enough that nobody clocks it as a watch guy's watch. This is the one that covers maybe 80% of your actual life. The desk on Monday, dinner on Friday, a first date, the wedding you forgot had a dress code until you were already in the car. Put it on a brown leather strap and it reads dressy. Drop it on a steel bracelet and it reads weekend. One watch, 2 lives, and it never looks out of place in either. And yet, this is the watch almost everyone skips. Guys go straight from the G-Shock to a chunky diver because the diver looks cooler in photos. And then they spend the next 2 years realizing the diver is too sporty for half the places they actually go. The versatile automatic is less exciting to brag about and far more useful to own. It is the watch you wear 300 days a year and never once resent. The good news is, this tier has never been better than it is right now. An automatic movement that used to cost real money now shows up in watches a working person can actually afford, often with 2 or 3 days of power reserve, a sapphire crystal, and finishing that quietly embarrasses watches twice the price. You are not settling by starting here. You are buying the single smartest watch in the entire lineup. But there is a reason guys lust after that diver, and it has nothing to do with water resistance. It is what the watch does to you the first time you put it on. That is number 3, and it is where this whole thing stops being practical and starts getting personal. Quick thing before we get into it. If a no-hype take on watches is what you came here for, subscribe, because that is the only kind I make. Now, the watch that turns a purchase into an obsession. Number 3. The first watch that makes you feel something. Almost every guy who falls into this hobby falls in through a dive watch. A Seiko diver is the classic doorway. Real automatic movement, a bezel that actually turns, a weight on the wrist that the G-Shock and the slim automatic simply do not have. You strap it on, and for the first time, a watch feels like an object with mass and intent, not just a thing that reports the time. This is the gateway. It is the watch a young guy saves a couple of paychecks for, and the day it arrives, he keeps catching his own wrist in the mirror. Something shifts. He starts reading about movements at midnight. He starts noticing what is on other people's wrists. A diver is usually the watch that turns a single purchase into a hobby, and a hobby into the thing his friends gently make fun of him for. Now here is what no spec sheet will tell you. You do not need 200 meters of water resistance. You are not saturation diving off an oil rig. On a good day, this watch reaches the deep end of a swimming pool. What you actually need is the thing the depth rating cannot measure. You stand up a little straighter when it is on your wrist. You feel a notch closer to the version of yourself you are trying to become. That feeling is the entire product, and that feeling is the part that hooks you for life. Seiko owns the entry to this, and it has for decades, because the value is almost unfair. But there is a ceiling worth aiming at, and its name is Tudor. A Tudor Black Bay is the dive watch a lot of guys quietly promise themselves. It sits at the edge of serious money, it carries genuine watchmaking, and it is the natural endpoint of the road that a cheap Seiko starts you down. You do not need it at 25. You just need to know it is out there waiting. So buy the Seiko now, wear it for years. Let it be the watch you learned everything on. If the Tudor ever happens, let it happen because you earned it, and not because an algorithm decided you needed it this week. A dive watch will cover your weekends, your travel, and most of your fun for the rest of your life. But it cannot walk you into the rooms where the rules are stricter and the watch on your wrist is quietly being judged. For that, you need something thin, plain, and grown up. And almost nobody owns one until the exact morning they desperately need it.
Number 4. The watch for the days that count.
This is the one nobody is excited to buy and everybody is grateful to own. A dress watch. Thin case, clean dial, 2 or 3 hands, a leather strap, and nothing else going on. It is not loud. It is not a conversation piece. It is built to disappear under a shirt cuff and only show itself when you reach for something across the table. Here's why it matters far more than it looks like it should. By 30, the formal days start arriving without warning. An interview that got moved up a week. A wedding where you are suddenly standing in the photos. A funeral that was not on your calendar on Monday. These are the moments where showing up properly is the entire assignment, and the watch is part of showing up. A slim dress watch on leather tells the room you understood it before you walked in. And the worst possible time to learn you do not own one is the morning you need it. You are knotting a tie at 6 in the morning, you open the drawer, and the only thing staring back at you is a 44mm dive watch on a rubber strap. It will not fit under the cuff. It looks like you wore a piece of gym equipment to grieve. There is no fixing that at 6 a.m. You either already own the right watch, or you do not. That is the quiet truth about this one. Nobody has ever regretted owning a proper dress watch. It sits in the box for months doing absolutely nothing, and then once or twice a year, it is the only correct option in the house, and it is perfect. Plenty of guys, though, can tell you about the chunky diver they wore to a funeral exactly one time, and how wrong it felt the moment they glanced down at it. You do not need to spend much here. A clean, thin, honest dress watch comes in across a wide spread of prices, and at this stage, simpler beats flashy every time. No diamonds, no skeleton dial, no trying too hard. Buy the boring one. The boring one is the grown-up one. So that is 4 roles filled. The tough one, the everyday one, the fun one, and the formal one. Which leaves the last watch. And the last one does not work like the others. You do not buy it for a situation. You buy it for a reason.
Number 5. The one you buy once.
Every watch up to now solved a problem. This one does not solve anything. This is the watch you save for. The watch that marks something. A promotion. The first real money you earned and actually kept. The birthday where 29 quietly becomes 30 and you realize the decade is genuinely ending. Something happened that mattered, and you wanted an object that would remember it alongside you. For a lot of guys, this lands on an Omega or a Tudor, but the brand on the dial is not the point. The point is that you waited for it. You did not put it on a credit card the same week you saw it on YouTube. You let it cost you something real, and you bought it once, and you bought it to keep. And that word, keep, is what separates this watch from the other four. The G-Shock you will eventually replace. The automatics you might trade or sell as your taste shifts over the years. This one you do not flip. This is the watch that could still be running in 40 years, on a wrist that is not yours yet. It is one of the very few things a man buys in his 20s that can outlive the whole decade and end up meaning something to someone he has not even met. That is also why it is worth the wait. There is a trap in this hobby, and the trap is churn. You buy a hyped piece, you get bored, you sell it at a loss, you buy the next hyped piece, and you run that loop 5 times and land roughly where one good watch would have put you, minus a serious pile of money. The milestone piece is the cure for churn. You step off the carousel. You wait, you save, you buy the thing you genuinely want, and then you stop. And it is not about the flex. A man who needs the whole room to notice the watch usually bought it for the wrong reasons in the first place. The right reason is private. You know exactly what it cost you to get here, and the watch knows it too, and that is plenty. Nobody else has to recognize the brand for it to mean what it means. So that is the 5th role, and it is the one you cannot rush and cannot fake. 4 of these watches you could buy this year. The 5th one you have to grow into. And when all 5 are finally sitting in the box together, something becomes obvious that was nowhere in sight when you started. Here is what becomes obvious. These were never 5 random watches. They are 5 versions of you. The G-Shock is you on the rough days, the ones where you need a tool and not a statement. The everyday automatic is you at work, putting in the boring reps that actually build a life. The dive watch is you having fun, the version of you that still gets genuinely excited about things. The dress watch is you showing up properly when it counts, for the people who count. And the milestone piece is you arriving, finally, on your own terms and your own clock. That is the whole game, not 50 watches by 30. 5 roles, filled with intention. You do not need a collection. You need the rough day, the working day, the fun day, the formal day, and the day you arrive. Each one covered by a watch that earns its spot on your wrist. Fill those 5 and the foundation is done. Everything you buy after that is just want, and want is completely fine, as long as you stay honest that the foundation was already built. Start with the one you cannot kill. End with the one you keep. Spend the decade earning everything in between.